Welcome to Gumball Love. I'm Melissa Ledger, professional relationship coach, creator of Gumball Love and the Back to You Academy. If you're ready to stop the cycle of toxic men, get through the breakup once and for all, and finally get back to you, you are in the right place. This journey is about healing your heart, and you are encouraged to take the pace that is just right for you. In the process, you will build a foundation of confidence and strength that will make you unshakable, I promise. So get ready to level up your mindset and your lifestyle as you awaken the seeds of greatness just waiting to burst into full bloom. Let's do this. Welcome back to another episode of Gumball Love. I'm your host, Melissa Ledger. All right, today we are going to talk about something that I think is life-changing. I wanted to get to it on last week's podcast, but I ran out of time, and I really wanted to make sure that I gave it its proper time and attention. So if you remember, last week we were talking about how I've done all the right things and I feel like I have a career and I have friends and I have hobbies, but I'm not finding the person that I want to be with and what is going on. What am I doing wrong? So I wanted to talk to you about something else that you can work on right now or you can look into. And I got into it just briefly on the last podcast. But it is about our attachment styles. And I'm looking for an expert to walk us through the different attachment styles because I think that this could be very eye-opening. And I also, at the same time, do not want you to pigeonhole yourself or start labeling yourself as having this issue or I'm burdened by this style. So last week I told you I have anxious attachment. I'm just going to say anxious attachment because they say it's a disorder, but I feel like all of us have a different style and all of us were brought up differently. And so, but I feel like those of us that are in this community, a lot of us will share this in common. When we have dated Gumball Guys, we have had the experience of that extreme high based on all the sugar rushes that we're experiencing. We're all getting gumballs in the beginning, right? It's very exciting. The adrenaline, the chemicals releasing, the endorphins, and all the wonderful things that happen when you're really attracted to someone. However, when the person is no longer getting high off of those things and they pull away, it triggers anxiety in us. Because, and rightfully so, that a lot of us, when we were younger, our parents were actually not getting their emotional needs met. And I'm not going to go into extreme detail on this. I just want us to stay at a surface level for a second in this. I want you to just imagine your mom and dad, or if you had a single mom or a single dad, or even grandparents, even if you were not raised by your actual biological parents, whatever was going on, or maybe you were adopted even, and regardless of the situation, if our caregiver was having anxiety or they were not getting their emotional needs met while they were pregnant with us, while our mothers were pregnant, while they were trying to caregive. So imagine if you had a father that was not there for your mother or she wasn't supported. And a lot of us that are a little bit older too, the guy traditionally may not even have thought he should be a part of those things. A lot of men didn't go to Lamaze class. They weren't actively participating in these things. They didn't see it as the man's job. So the woman was left to do a lot of these things on her own and didn't really think anything of it, although it's a huge responsibility, especially the first child. But I don't care how many kids you have. It's it's the biggest responsibility. So if you're not getting your emotional needs met, you're feeling anxious, you are going to pass that on to your child. So for those of us that had parents that were not supported, even beyond, obviously beyond our mother being pregnant with us, or if they got divorced or they were fighting, all of that interrupted how we associate attaching to another person. And I'm saying this to you because yes, we can talk about Gumball Guys. Yes, we can talk about avoiding red flags. But when it comes to actually being in a healthy relationship and being attracted to a healthy relationship, I want to bring to your attention that you may have anxiety around the actual attachment part. You fall in love, you develop feelings, but in your experience, both as a child and in your adult relationships, there has been turbulence when you are trying to attach. And so becoming aware of this early on, even before your relationship. So I told you guys in the last episode, I found the love of my life. We've been together all of 2020. And I realized I had anxiety that would come up. And I really started going deep into attachment styles. And anxious attachment was everything I was feeling. And so by me researching that and taking ownership and realizing this is something I am feeling, even when there is no evidence in the relationship itself to give me this feeling. So I look at my partner, I look at how I'm feeling, and I realize he's not doing anything different than he did yesterday. And all of a sudden I have all this anxiety. What's going on? And so once I identified this I knew I had anxiety just in general, right? Because we know, hello, I'm Melissa Ledger, Gumball Love. So I've dated all these Gumball guys. I've had these experiences. My parents divorced when I was very young. And so, my parents were not really in love with each other. So there was a lot of turbulence throughout their whole relationship, which does affect me. But, at some point we have to say, okay, I'm not going to just blame my parents for everything. Yes, they had issues. They weren't perfect. But what I think is amazing is we can forgive our parents. We can recognize, especially when we become adults, that, recognize their situation. I know some people have they have almost unforgivable situations. So I'm not telling you, just forgive them and move on. I don't take that lightly. In fact, that annoys me when people do that. But I mean this more in a general sense of I'm going to look at what my mom or dad or both mom and dad had going on at the time, what issues they may have been given from their parents. So let's look at grandma and grandpa on both sides. Let's look at parents. Let's look at what they had to deal with. And let's adjust expectations and also understand where I might be getting these feelings. Because what I realized is a lot of what I was feeling wasn't coming from necessarily Gumball Guys. It was coming from something much deeper. And once I could put a name to it, and it was like going to the doctor and having a pain that, you couldn't tell where it was coming from. And then all of a sudden, have you ever had this happen where you worry about something and you go to the doctor and it's something simple? I had it happen where my stomach was bothering me, hurting so bad, and I got freaked out. And I said, okay, I've got to figure this out. I'm lactose intolerant. I had gotten an endoscopy. It was basically, I walked in, I worked the rest of the day. Had it in the morning, was able to work the rest of the day. Hey, dairy will make you feel that way. And so I spent so much time being worried about what was going on in my stomach. And do I have cancer? Do I have a tumor? What's going on? You can Googling those symptoms was a nightmare. And so once I had the diagnosis, then I understood where the pain was coming from. Then I could point to what was causing it. And then I started to heal. And that's exactly what happened. This great relationship, but then I was having this anxiety and it was driving me nuts sometimes. And as soon as I put a name to it, it was like, oh, it's so great when it's just you too. It's not in your relationship. It's something I can control. It's something I can take responsibility for. And so I wanted to say in the last podcast that we don't want to put this burden on our partner to solve this issue. Now, my partner is extremely loving, but it's still not his job to be my therapist and walk me through this and do all this research. So what I'm telling you is that yes, you can have your guy. Yes, you can find love. Yes, it can be amazing, but you're still going to be doing this kind of work inside of your relationship. A lot of the girls that were in the Back to You Academy, they found love and they stayed in the academy for several months after because we continued to work through these types of things. And I was able to share some things with them that I was working through even prior to this because we are a constant work in progress. So I want you to understand you do not have to be perfect to meet your significant other. You do not have to have arrived, and you do not have to be perfect, and you don't have to think there's something wrong with you. It's all part of the journey. And so, but whenever I figure something like this out, I always think, oh man, I wish I would have known this earlier. And so then I share this with you. I want to help you go through this without having very many detours or exits off of that nice smooth interstate. And so this is one area that you could really look into, and then you can recognize the symptoms. And then what I recommend you do also is journal through this. So anytime I felt anxiety or I felt like something was wrong, I would write it down. And then I would come back to it the next day and say to myself, okay, you had all these worries and anxieties, but was there any evidence to support those? Because I was coming up with some real good stuff in my head that I was convinced, oh my gosh, this has to be happening. And it just wasn't. And so journaling helped me record, you have these feelings, but they are actually not real. Now, it doesn't mean that nothing's real. Of course, you can look at, we're not blanketing, this covers all issues in all relationships. Of course not. But what I'm focusing on in this is that I don't want you to finally find the guy that's really going to be amazing and treat you well, and then have this anxiety come up to where it overtakes you. Because it could, if you don't have control of it, it could constantly create problems, which would really affect your happiness. And it may be where your partner says, I can't help you. Because it's like if you broke your leg, you would not go to your friend's house to have them fix your broken leg. You would go to the hospital because you know that your friend does not know how to set your leg and put it in a cast. They don't have the tools. They don't have the knowledge. They didn't go to school to do that. So your friend would feel bad for you. They would try to make you feel comfortable. They might give you some ice. They might give you some Tylenol. We can go to people and they can do only so much. And then it's up to us to go to the people that can actually fix our problem. And we have to recognize where our job begins and our partner's ends. And that, yes, they will be there for you. Yes, they can support you. Yes, they will love you, and they will do whatever it takes. Of course, we do that for the people that we love. But when we can't really help them with that other part, this is where also, if you listen to the last podcast, this is where where our love for ourselves really kicks in, and why it's so important to love yourself. Because when you love yourself and you take care of yourself, then you're so much easier to be a partner with, because you're taking that burden off of them. You're working through it on your own. So what I do with this is I go to my therapist and I talk through it. I journal through it, and eventually it starts to melt away, and it gets smaller and smaller, and anxiety becomes less and less. So I want you to not date Gumball Guys. I want you to love and take care of yourself. I want you to realize there is nothing wrong with you, like we talked about last week. But I also want you to be prepared for real love, and I want you to be prepared to receive it. And I don't want these things to stand in your way and confuse you. Oh my gosh, I found this guy, but now I don't know how to act. And a lot of my clients will say, I don't know how to deal with real love, because your real partner, the one that you will spend the rest of your life with, it's going to surprise you. It's going to be incredible love that you've never experienced before. And so when we've never experienced something before, it's unfamiliar territory. And I want to help you be prepared for that the best way I know how. And I'm actually looking for experts. So if you know of people that can speak to this, a psychologist that might have some ideas. But if you're out there and you feel like you do have an expertise in this area, I would love to know what you think, because I believe that real love it's so much deeper and so much more meaningful. And it also is more calm and steady. And I've talked about this before I was experiencing it. But when you're not used to the calm and the steady in the very beginning, it can be unnerving because we are used to turbulence. So when turbulence isn't there, then we're not getting that constant. The roller coaster has the up and down, right? So you get those extreme highs, but you're also getting the extreme lows. So when you're in the extreme low, you're waiting for that extreme high to then anesthetize you, to numb the pain from the low. And so those highs and lows, even when we're dating a Gumball guy, even when our intentions are good, I look back and I realized when I was dating Gumball guys, I was also experiencing the high because that was their love language. They were asking me for attention. I was giving attention, and then I was looking for attention back. So I was experiencing the highs without realizing that there wasn't a deep connection and a bond happening based on loving each other for who we are, not what we can get, not for an outcome to happen. So that's the biggest message I want you to take away from this. And I wish I would have been able to fit this all in one podcast, but I think it was a little bit too much. So this one will be a little bit shorter, but I just wanted to focus in this area because I think it's so important that we look at this. So I want to also just read this tiny little section of, this is in Psychology Today, and I'll link the article. It says, a parent who creates an anxious attachment with their child often experienced this style of attachment themselves as a child. They had their own emotional needs that weren't consistently met, which left them feeling empty. When they become parents, they often turn to their child to attempt to fill the emotional hole. This style of attachment becomes a model for the child for how relationships work, and they carry this model into their own adult relationships. This continues a generational cycle of anxious attachment. So think about when people say, I just want to have a baby. So I always tell people, change that into, I want to bring a human into the world that turns into a full-grown adult. And then it's like, well, obviously we know that that's what happens, but that's what we're actually doing. They're only a baby for a year, then they're a toddler, then they're going to school. And then you have a full human life that's going to be on this earth for potentially 100 years. So when we look at it like that, they're going to live their own life 80 out of those 100 years, right? And you're not going to be there every day for them. So when you look at the responsibility, it's not just, but a baby can fill an emotional hole. I want to have a baby because I feel like I'm of a certain age and I need to do it right now and it has to be. But if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. We don't want to force a baby into a life because we feel anxious that we should have done it by now. Do you see how that can perpetuate? I just thought of that. I'm like, oh my God, all of us who feel pressure to have children on these timelines, when we are not getting our needs met, will perpetuate an anxious attachment. And so my mission in this entire, my long-term mission is to help as many people as possible get healthy themselves, find healthy partners, and have healthy children. So if you are lucky and blessed enough to bring another human being onto this earth and live this life, that we give them the best shot possible, and that we give them healthy attachment and a healthy experience and a secure, what we want, the ideal is the secure attachment. But I believe we can grow to be comfortable with secure attachment. I believe we can eventually get there if we are aware and we continue to do the work. So if you relate to this, this is just the thing that you and I have to do. We have to do a little bit of work. When the anxiety comes up, we don't run to our partner. We don't say, oh my gosh, I'm feeling this. Help me, help me, help me. Instead, we ask ourselves, where is this coming from? What's the evidence to produce this anxiety? Write it down. Come back to it. Talk to your therapist. Talk to somebody who can say, yeah, I can't tell you how many times I would bring something to my therapist and he would say, I think you can lighten up. I think you can analyze it less. It's just like, such good news, but the anxiety will make you feel extremely justified. Like, this is really, I really, really feel this. Add the female hormonal cycle to your anxiety around attachment, and you've got yourself a nice little cocktail of, as my friend Shannon says, getting your crazy shined up. You can get your crazy all shined up and then come to your partner a hot mess because you feel all the feelings. However, if you confront that over and over and over again, you will whittle it down, and then you, all of a sudden, you will be calm. And I shouldn't say all of a sudden. It's not going to be an all of a sudden. Little by little, each time you confront it, you can have a different conversation with yourself. Instead of just letting those thoughts run rampant, you now look at them differently. I'm feeling the thoughts. I'm feeling the feelings. I'm thinking the thoughts. My body is physically reacting. I have anxiety. However, is it based on actual evidence? And has this evidence meant something in the past? What I see, did it actually mean what I thought it meant? Because it feels very real. So you honor your feeling in that moment, but you also say, okay, I have an app that tracks my female hormonal cycle. So I look at the calendar and go, okay, I know you're feeling this way, but is this because of your hormones? Is this because you drank too much coffee today in combination with this? Let's journal it out. Let's make an appointment with a therapist. Let's give it a minute. Let's not pick up a phone or send the text and just calm yourself down. And sometimes you might fail at that and you do run to your partner, and it's okay. You're going to make mistakes and you're not supposed to be perfect. But I want you to look at your toolbox and say, what do I have in here that I can take on myself and it's not even all about your partner. It's about how you're treating your coworkers, your boss, your family members, and your friends. How we are able to look at our own emotions and then internalize and say, okay, how am I going to tackle this on my own? Who is the most qualified to help me with this problem? So I hope this was helpful to you. I know it's a little bit deep, but I wanted to just take extra time to address anxious attachment. And I hate to say disorder, so we'll just say anxious attachment. And it's so important to also, I think we have to say also about our parents, regardless of how annoying this is, they had it passed down to them too. They didn't just say, hey, I think I'm going to generate some anxious attachment and pass it on to my kid. And my mother was not thinking that. My dad was not thinking that. They didn't know. So when we know better, we do better, right? And we can stop the cycle. And this is the cycle I want to stop for as many people as I can, because once we stop this, we have a real chance at having that secure attachment to someone we love, and we can focus on building a life together instead of being afraid we're going to lose the relationship, being afraid they're going to walk away, being afraid that they're going to find something out about us and then walk away. Go back to the last podcast that I did about people who love you for who you are. You're not going to be able to get rid of them. I think about the people, just reverse it in your head. Think about the people you really love, like your friends. Could they get rid of you? I mean, it's like they would have to betray me royally but if there's no betrayal or there's no glaring thing, I would never even imagine having them out of my life. I don't care what they do, how bad they screw up, or if they say something off color or ridiculous or something I disagree with or whatever. They're not losing me as a friend because I love them so much. I'll think of my friend Brandy. I love her so much that there's nothing she can do to get me to think, oh, I'm not going to be her friend anymore. And so your significant other is going to feel that exact same way. They're not going to just on a whim walk away because of one instance. You're going to build this over time. And so as we talked about last week, we have to have confidence in ourselves. We have to like ourselves enough, and we have to know that we are worthy, which feels weird for people like us because it feels selfish. But it's actually the opposite. When you feel good about yourself, you love yourself, and you take care of yourself, that's when you are the most beneficial to your partner. A partner that doesn't take care of themselves, that drive you crazy. You'll start to worry about their health. You'll start to worry about how they're doing. And if they aren't taking care of themselves, that puts stress on your partner. Just if you're not taking care of your everyday needs, you need to be working out. You need to be eating right, taking your vitamins and doing your annual checkups and making sure everything is okay. That also takes away worry and pressure from your partner. So taking care of yourself is taking care of your relationship. So it's so, so important. So I wanted to just give this to you as a part of the tools in your toolbox. And as you examine this, I highly recommend that you take this to your therapist and talk about your attachment style and ask him or her how you can work through this, if this is what your style is and how it applies to you directly. I want you to customize this as much as possible. If you are in a position you cannot afford therapy, journaling, my therapist he asked me, do you journal in the very beginning? And I said, yes, I do. And he goes, okay, good. And I said, why did you ask me that? And he goes, because if you can journal, it means you can talk through your thoughts. And that is how basically what you're doing in therapy. So it makes you more advanced as you're working through things if you can write them out. If you can write your thoughts out, if you can reason through them. And you also develop a relationship with yourself when you're doing that. You're talking to yourself through things that you're struggling with, and you're getting it on paper, which helps it from going and making your brain race. And, a lot of anxiety is recycling those thoughts over and over and over again, worrying. I'm a planner, I'm a worrier. And so journaling has always been the way for me to get those thoughts on paper. And I always say, get the rats out of your head. I'm going to put those rats on paper, and then I can see, okay, I'm thinking the same 4 thoughts over and over again. And that's what I'm worried about. When I write those thoughts, the 4 things on paper, it makes all the difference in the world. So write these things down. I'm afraid these things are going to happen. What are the worst case scenarios? Write those things down. Okay, how likely are these things to happen? Probably not very likely. How much time should I spend worrying about this? Probably not that much. And so, but if we just think about it, what are you going to do? It just perpetuates that anxiety, which is, I think, so many of us are struggling with, especially in this time in 2020. And so the more tools we can have, the better. And also all the other things, right? Working out blows off steam, just going for a walk, taking our vitamins, drinking plenty of water. I mean, just sometimes I'll notice I'm super irritable or I can't fall asleep because I haven't drank enough water. And so my body there's this irritability that builds up because I'm not hydrated. And then I'll lay in bed and be like, oh, I didn't drink enough water today. That is the problem. So it's just all of these things really do contribute to maintaining good mental health and being able to function on a high level in your work, in your relationships, and your hobbies. And this is what allows you to have a little bit more freedom to create and to think about those things that you love, your favorite music, your favorite podcasts, all the things we talked about in the last episode. So that is all I wanted to leave with you today, is making sure you have what you need in your toolbox, that you go to the person or the people that are most qualified to help you, and that you feel empowered to work through these things on your own or with the help of a professional who has gone to school and knows exactly how to help you. Take away the stigma of therapy. Therapy makes you a better person. It doesn't mean, again, that there's something wrong with you. We all have stuff. And so we go to doctors for everything else. Why wouldn't we go to doctors to help us work through things to gain more mental clarity? I mean, after years of therapy, I'm able to work through things. I'm more calm and more steady. My relationships are healthy. My friendships are wonderful. I don't have gumball friends anymore. I just don't. I haven't had gumball friends for a long time. And I'm just used to it now. And if somebody comes into my life, it's like, ugh. I always give it's like a giant black cricket jumping onto a white cake. I mean, I feel it. I see it. I sense it. I have no energy for it. But it took me a while to evolve those relationships out. It just took me a while to become aware of them. So give yourself that space and that time to do it. And remember, you are not trying to get all this stuff done before your Mr. Right, quote unquote, comes into your life. Your guy will meet you where you are. And so you and I have this relationship now. So I can take a little bit of pressure off of you. I can help guide you a little bit. And that's what I'm here to do. That's why I feel inspired to do this podcast. That's why I have the ability to speak these words, because God put this mission in me to help you. So, but I believe that my mission to help you takes pressure off of you to even, I want to reduce the time you have to spend doing this. I want to just give you all the tools so you have what you need so that you can fulfill your purpose and what you're supposed to do and contribute your gift to the right people instead of feeling stuck or shameful about your past relationship, feeling stuck in your current relationship, feeling bad about being single. We need to get rid of all of that. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. You will meet the person at the exact right time. And if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. You will meet the person that you're supposed to meet. But even regardless of all of that, it does not determine your happiness. Your significant other is not going to be your happiness. That is way too much pressure to put on one person. They cannot be responsible for it. And a healthy person won't be responsible for it. They will not take on your problems. They will realize that you need someone else and it won't be them. So we cannot give them all of those titles. And so I hope this helps you to look at your attachment style differently, to recognize, okay, I might have, and I want you to take it lightly. Okay, I have anxiety around attachment. What can I do about it? Instead of, oh my God, I have anxious attachment. It's like, okay, so what? I mean, a lot of us do. What's the solution? How can I work through it? And like I told you, knowing you have it is so huge. Awareness is everything. Once I become aware, then I have power to fix it. But if I don't know it's happening, I don't know what's causing the anxiety, then the anxiety is ruling my life. And so once you have control of it, then everything changes. So just like Wayne Dyer says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so I hope this helps you. Let me know if you have questions, and I will link the Psychology Today article about all the different types. I don't want to get too in depth because I'd rather have a professional going through this. So Lisa Firestone, PhD, clinical psychologist, wrote this article. So maybe we'll get Lisa Firestone to actually be on this podcast. That will be the goal. So until next time, you guys, I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening. If you want more information or to schedule a private coaching session, or better yet, to join the next Back to You Academy, go to gumballlove.com. If you loved this podcast, I would love for you to share it with your friends. And if you really loved it, a 5-star review is the best compliment you can give. Remember, you are enough, you are right where you should be, and the only thing you have to do is keep going. I'll leave you with my favorite quote by Henry David Thoreau. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams and live the life you have imagined. Until next time, I'll see you soon.